Okay, this is Caring for Your Aging Parent, a guide for families, and I'm just going to give you a brief introduction to myself. Besides being an elder care coordinator, I have a background in education and as a professional guardian, and also as a private guardian. I took care of my parents, and one of them had to be a guardianship, and we'll talk about that later. But I did take care of my mother until she passed. So Laura Monday is an elder care coordinator with me, and she's here with us today. And so Laura, go ahead and give your introduction.
Hi, yes, I'm Laura Monday, and I am the other elder care coordinator here at the Miller Elder Law Firm. Been here almost 2 years. My background is in case management and also working in a lot of medical offices, medical or health administration. I share this role with Jolisa, helping guide families through this healthcare maze as a healthcare advocate. I too have parents that are elderly, I guess, and are needing care. And so am also in the process of navigating this maze and the healthcare process with my parents. So as we both talked about, we both have had to step in and help our parents at some point in our life, Jolisa and I both. So when do you know, or how do you know when it's time to step in and help your parents? And I would say the key is to keep involved. You have to be involved. You have to spend some time with them, or at least over the phone, to recognize changes that they're going through. Are they talking about missing appointments? Are they misplacing items? If you go and visit, do they have mail piling up where they're maybe not opening their mail, or maybe have important mail laying around that you think should have been addressed and it hasn't been? Are there medication bottles that don't look like there's any organization to them? Is there old food in the fridge? Are they not staying on top of that? Are they losing weight? Maybe they're just not taking care of themselves anymore. They might be not recognizing the need to eat as much. They might be too busy trying to maintain. So to me, those are kind of some of the things that we look at that would show signs of dementia, but also just cognitive decline as a normal aging process. Jaleesa, when you notice things and start to have concerns as a parent, in your parents, how do you start those conversations, or how do you talk to your parents about your concerns that you have?
Well, before you even notice those changes, what I did was in their 60s, we talked to my parents, like, what do you want? But they had already started doing their planning. So the conversation was opened at that time. But with the second part of the conversation wasn't opened until later in life, when mom lost her ability to speak and to understand what was being said. So at that point, we had to go back to all the documents. So if you haven't talked to them about their documentation, do you have a healthcare surrogate? Do you want me to be somebody to help you? Have those conversations, because when they're younger and they understand what's happening before they get to the point where they can't explain it to you. So they need things like a durable power of attorney in case something happens and you need to step in. It's not that you're going to go into their bank account and start doing things. It's they need to have that document. They need to have a health care surrogate documentation. They need a living will. They need to tell you before they can't tell you, what are their wishes? Where do they want to live? What do they want out of life? As they age, what kind of, if do they want to go in a facility, or do they want to stay home and have care in the home? But those are the things you need to start talking about before. when you start talking about them when they've already you have this concern, there's something going on, and they're trying to defend themselves because they don't want you to know there's issues going on. You have to be very careful. And what I did was, we started with, Mom, you need help. It's obvious. Do you want me to help you? You want my sister to help you? Do you want my brother to help you? Who do you want to help you? And she couldn't answer, but then we started asking people's names, and then she started answering. So those are the kinds of conversations you need to have, and it's not like they have to answer right away. My mom took a couple days to think about it, and then we asked again, and she knew what she wanted. But it's not like you're bugging them, you're just asking them. So you need to know some information, and some of it you can find digging through the house and the paperwork. But some of it, and they're going to get upset if you start going through their paperwork. They are going to get upset. Some do, some don't. My mom didn't really care, but some people do not want you to know their finances. But the conversation needs to have, what happens if something happens to you and mom's still here, or, you're talking to your dad. So you need to use that kind of terminology. We need to work together as a team, Dad, to get us everybody taken care of, because you want mom taken care of. But not every parent's going to welcome these questions. Believe me, they don't want to give out their information, but you got to go at it kind of like, we're a team here, Dad, Mom. Let's all work together and get you the best quality of life you can have. But how do you go about helping them? That's the other thing. So now you've had this conversation, and they said, okay, yeah, you can be this. You can be my healthcare surrogate now, or your DPOA. Now what? How do you do it? Laura.
I found with my parents that it takes a lot of patience, empathy, and compassion. It may take longer for them to do everyday tasks. They may not think as logically or be as capable or independent as they used to be. And that sometimes frustrates them. Like you say, they may not want you going through their papers. They might feel like you're invading their privacy. So they might get defensive. And so it does take a lot of patience to understand how they feel. Look at it from their point of view. They might be scared. They might be frustrated. They might be embarrassed. These are all feelings that they are having to go through as they go through this journey of the end of life. They've been independent their whole life. Now they're having to change, and change is uncomfortable. So, how do we help them without taking away their independence? I think, like Jaleesa said, we need to listen to them, find out what they want, and try not to get, even though we are having to take over in many ways and assist in many ways that we never had to in the past, try not to make it feel like you are taking over. Give them some tasks, give them some things to do. Validate those fears, the frustrations. Allow them to vent without giving them advice. Sometimes they don't want you to tell them how to do it better or how to make it through. They just want to tell you how they feel. So again, just kind of let them do some of the simple tasks. If you go into sort for papers, let them hold the papers or make the piles as you go through it. Make them feel involved. So I think that's, in giving them step-by-step instructions. As we get older, and if there's cognitive decline, the ability to handle multi-step tasks, it fades. So if you can't tell mom or dad to take this to the kitchen and do this to it and do that to it, you're going to have to say, take this to the kitchen. And then once they're in the kitchen, you're going to have to tell them the next step. So that's how we have to change in the way that we interact with our parents or anyone else that is starting to show some of these cognitive changes. What else do we know about how we would interact or ways to help? Jolisa?
There are a lot of community resources, and you need to get involved as the daughter or son. You need to get involved in these community resources. Find out what is in Gainesville that helps with seniors. Any senior benefits, VA benefits, Medicare. There's supplemental plans, because we've seen a lot of people every year, starting in February, they can choose another supplemental plan or an advantage plan, and everybody's calling them and asking them to change. So you need to be involved knowing which one your parent has and which one, gives them the best benefit. Go with them to the senior center in Gainesville. The senior center has a Shine comes there, which is Elder Options, a program of volunteers that can tell you about Medicare and the different plans there are. You need to be knowledgeable, because knowledge is power. If you are knowledgeable, then you can help your parents quickly get the help they need with you. Planning where your parents are going to stay during a hurricane. Okay, we're here, there's a hurricane coming. Where are your parents staying? Can they live there without electricity if the electricity goes out? Are they going to call you, or you were to call them? Are you going to go buy the house? I mean, who's going to let you know they're okay? Those are the kinds of things that, you need to think about, of what's going on with your parents. So what about community support? What about their home, Laura? Give us an idea of what their home should look like.
Yeah, you should take a look at their home before you start worrying about them falling. That's kind of where I'm going with the looking at the home. The things that really cause difficulties for health, that leads to decline with some of the our parents, is if they start to fall. You get to fall, they go in the hospital, you end up in rehab, you could get pneumonia, bed sores, all those things we want to avoid. And if we go look at the home, we look and see if there's any modifications needed early on. Do they need handrails? Do they need ramps? Do they need walk-in showers so they're not trying to get in and out of a tub? Is the lighting good? You can also look at things like little things to help around the home, like smart lighting. I think you can like hit a button or clap and the light bulbs come on. Those things, having something, or they have lights for toilets. Even if you have to get up in the middle of the night and go to the bathroom, there's a light on a toilet that you can have. It's like a night light. Anything you can do to avoid falls. Looking at rugs. Sometimes rugs can cause people to trip if they're not picking their feet up all the way, or you catch your toe in the rug, you can fall. Everything should be kind of geared towards not falling or avoiding falls. Do you need to downsize? Do you need a single level home instead of stairs? Downsizing can also, not only for modifications, but it also can reduce the amount of work and time taking care of a larger home. The lawn, downsizing to a smaller property, or a senior living community that would offer socialization, and you don't have to worry about the maintenance of the home or the lawn. As far as that kind of safety and avoiding falls, what other kind of things like scammers? You're also, when you're at home, our parents are subject to all the scammers that are targeting the elderly. How do we protect our parents?
So by visiting often is one of the ways to protect your parents. Sometimes you'll notice invoices or checks made out to somebody, that people you don't know. It's not like it's going to GRU, it's going to John so-and-so. Lots of telephone calls while you visit. If you're visiting and the telephone is ringing and she's saying, like, I'm busy right now, and she hangs up, and then, or he says, I'm busy right now, and hangs up. You get quite a few of them. There's something going on, and you need to really be proactive about what's going on. I'll tell you a story about my mom, and it was sad. My dad died, and in the paper, in the obituary, they said where he lived, in what city. They said he was a military veteran. You know, he's a Purple Heart, all this stuff in there. The next thing we know, mom is getting phone calls from some organization stating dad wanted to help the veterans. So we're going to send somebody to the house to pick up $300. Well, my mom got caught up in that. And all of a sudden, people were coming to the house. What so happened one day, I was at the house. They showed up and we're like, what's going on here? And we had to get that stopped. And I'll tell you, it's not just that. They get them on the phone. They tell them, oh, I need this money. You're going to help. And they're going to send you an envelope to mail cash to them. And I had a lady do the same thing. Went down to the bank and was getting cash out. And after the third time, and the dollar amounts went higher and higher. After the third time, the bank called the daughter because the daughter had gotten on the bank account with the mom and she wasn't really monitoring it. They called and said, listen, this is what's happening. And then they were able to stop, you know, the person from getting the money. But the problem was that they kept calling. So we gave her an unlisted number. It didn't matter. They got it. Don't know how they got it. They got her unlisted number. And so finally, we just gave her a cell phone and had to have her use a cell phone because she was giving and she will continually give because they tell her that her husband said, and it's like, your husband's been dead for 10 years now. We need to really look at what is going on. And, you know, there's a lot of scams out there. And the best thing to do is be aware of what kinds of scams are in Gainesville or in Marion County or in Sumter County, whatever county you live in. Find out what the scams are, and you can do that on the Alachua County website. The sheriff's department, they usually have what the latest scams are. Also, let's see what else. What kinds of technology, because I'm not familiar with technology, Laura, what kinds of technology are out there to help our parents age in place?
There are some means to monitor against scammers through technology nowadays. You can request to put a lock on your credit. You can reach out to the 3 credit reporting companies, Experian, TransUnion, or Equifax, and you can actually ask them to put a lock on the credit so that people can't get new credit in your name. We use in our office an app called the Careful app, where you can register your cards or your bank accounts, and you tell them what person you want to be notified. You get an alert if there's unusual spending or activity. So that app also, in addition to the alert to any spending, they carry identity theft protection. So if you were to have your identity stolen and people took out credit in your other name, you know, a new name or something like that, ran up any cards, then that company, the Careful app, has an insurance policy for that. In addition to electronic monitoring, things that you can do in the home to age in place. Hopefully you can keep the scammers from knocking at your door. But physical items that you can purchase to be alerted to that would be like the Ring camera. You can see through a Ring and it can alert your phone who comes to the door for your parents. You know, eliminate that repetitive person coming to the door. You're alerted if you're on that app. Ring is just the one people know about. There's lots of other cameras out there. There's fault detection devices that include GPS or don't include GPS if you're not worried about them wandering. Regular cameras in the home, you can have an app on your phone. You can watch the person in the home. You can see the condition of the home. Monitor times that they're home alone. Maybe mom's at home and dad's at a doctor's appointment or runs to the grocery store. They could alert you, and you can watch on the cameras while the other person is gone to make sure that they're okay for that short time period. Because sometimes, you know, the other person doesn't want to go anywhere, but you have to go to the store, or the other person has to go to a doctor's appointment. So having those cameras can be helpful for the other caregivers, or even the person who's maybe at the grocery store. They can just look at their phone every once in a while and make sure that the wife is still in the house. So the GPS tracking can be done, so that if somebody is a wanderer and elopes, then you can locate them. The other thing that we find helpful in my house is locked medication dispensers. When you're retired, every day is a Saturday. So trying to remember what day is today, which medicine do I take, which little spot is it, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday? So that there are locked medication dispensers that you can fill, and they spin around with a battery and have an alarm on them, even telling you it's time to take your medicines. And until you dump the medicines out into a little container or your hand, it will continue to tell you that it's time to take your medicines. And it only allows you to get that medicine that's due at that time. You can program them up to four or five times a day. You know, you can program them for morning and evening. That's pretty cost effective. For under $100, you can purchase one of those. So how do we know when it's time to bring in care? Because these little modifications we've done or devices we've purchased just aren't enough.
Laura, I think that if mom's getting forgetful or dad's getting forgetful, they're starting to wander, I think that's the time to start looking at, look, she's outside at midnight walking around. Neighbors are telling you this. It's time for a caregiver to come in and help. Now, caregivers are costly if you're going to hire somebody, but there also could be family members that could just stay at the house at night and make sure she doesn't get out. And as Laura was talking about different devices, you can put an alarm on the door that will go off if somebody opens the door to go outside. But then there, it's hard because sometimes there's only one person that can be the caregiver. Maybe it's just dad that's the caregiver. He's going to get overwhelmed. So you need to help him too. And you need to look at everything like, do they have enough money for a caregiver to come in? And will they accept a caregiver? That's the other thing. And it does take time. Sometimes you could say, oh, she's just come to clean the house. And then they get to know her and they're like, okay, we'll let her come once a week. And then you can start building that. There's also sometimes they fall in the house and they break a hip. Then the decision to move them has already been made because they are in the hospital. Once they get in the hospital, there's a care team there that will determine, should they go to rehab? Most definitely, probably, yes. They'll go to rehab, but then after rehab, where are they going to go? Can they go back home? Are they safe to go back home? And that's when the whole team gets together and decides, the physicians, the PT, everybody decides, where's the best placement for her or him. And if they decide that, oh, we're going to send them to, they should just stay in long-term care. Well, that's a decision that has to be made also between the team, because sometimes mom and dad don't want to be in a nursing home, but they may need a long-term care solution. And that's where it comes into juggling finances. What do we need to do to get them into a facility? Which kind of facility? An ALF or a nursing home? That all depends upon their health and how they can handle things. And so that's a hard decision to make, but you're gonna have to decide. And so,
and how do you
go ahead.
pay for that care?
Yeah,
That's part of the team decision too.
yes. So all of that is something that all is everything that's taken into consideration. Now, let's say, oh, I can stay home and take care of mom and dad. I have dad's help. I can stay there. Well, that's great. But Laura's going to tell us how not to burn out being a caregiver.
Being a caregiver is a tough job. It's a tough job for a spouse. It's hard to stay feeling like a spouse when you become the caregiver. It's tough for the sandwich generation, which are adult children who are taking care of their children, and they're also having to help take care of their parents. So we call that a sandwich generation. It's tough for anyone. We go back to the thing I said earlier, patience takes a lot of patience, but it also takes practicing self-care. The caregiver needs to spend time each day just focusing on what they need, because if they don't keep going, they can't care for somebody else. They should think about, do something every day that you love. Is it exercise? Is it reading a book for 20 minutes? Is it, going for a walk? Doesn't have to be formal exercise. Meditation, time in prayer, whatever keeps you going. It's important to eat healthy, taking breaks, setting boundaries, knowing your limits. How much can you do? How many hours a day do you have to dedicate to the care? Making time for other family members, friends. Then seek help. If you feel like you need it, you feel like you just can't quite juggle it any longer, there's support groups, there's online support groups. You don't even have to leave the house for some. There's some very good ones that are online. You also can attend support groups in person. Just kind of ask around. There's support groups even for specific medical conditions such as Parkinson's, multiple sclerosis, just general dementia. You can also ask other family members to help you share tasks. Hire the sitter we talked about, hire overnight respite. There's day respite. You've got places like Al's Place. Some of the assisted living facilities do hourly respite. Altrusa House. Those are some of the ones here in Gainesville. So I think it's a matter of looking at your own ability to provide good care. Because if you burn out and you become an unfriendly caregiver, that is detrimental to everybody. So when you feel overwhelmed and you really aren't sure what to do next, Jaleesa, how do you get some expert guidance?
Okay, they have geriatric care managers, which are usually RNs. They're out here we have some in Gainesville, we have some in Ocala. You can hire them, or you can contact our office to schedule a consult with our team of attorneys and elder care coordinators. Remember, taking care of your parents requires a team, and the team all has to work together. So does anybody have Laura, do you have any questions or anything you want to say?
I think you've summed it up pretty well. I say it takes a village. It shouldn't be just one person caring for somebody else. It takes a village. That's kind of how I feel.
Okay. Do we have any questions? Because I don't see any. Try again. Man, we must did a good job.
I think we covered all the bases, right?
I think so. Well, we don't have any questions. No open questions, no closed questions. So Laura, I'll give you a couple minutes to put the questions in the question box if you have any. There's a Q&A down at the bottom of your screen.
So they'll receive this webinar through the mail. I see a question, but they'll see this webinar through their email, right? It'll be sent to them. So if they have any other questions, they can always reach out to us later. Contact office.
Right. If you have questions later, you can contact us at our office. One of the questions somebody had is, where can you get more info regarding paying for care?
Paying for care. The VA has some benefits available. There is a Medicaid waiver program through Elder Options that can possibly, there's a wait list, but they can possibly assist with some of that care. Most of the care is going to be private pay. Medicare, Medicaid, typically without going through processes, doesn't cover that care. If you want to bring in home health for some skilled care, that's a different thing. But the ongoing kind of care that we've mostly been talking about today is private pay. I hope that answers the question.
There's no other questions. Nope, here's another one. And also paying for a facility. So money to pay for facility.
When somebody comes out of the hospital and they've been in the hospital for something, Medicare will typically pay most of the first 100 days of rehab. When somebody is done with what Medicare covers, you can sometimes discharge home with home health. That is also, a short-term solution. If you're going to stay in a facility, assisted living is typically private pay. If you can, manage your needs with just a little bit of care, assisted living is typically the level of care somebody needs, but it is private pay. There is a Medicaid waiver that can kick in a little bit, but that's only a small portion of the fee. If you're going to go into a facility with a higher need, that would be a skilled nursing or a nursing home. That is a fee that's pretty high. It is also not covered by Medicare. It is covered by Medicaid, though. You would have to become eligible for Medicaid through the typical asset and income limit amount. If you're over those limits, you should reach out to an elder law attorney, such as our firm or any other, to find out how we could talk to you about becoming Medicaid eligible, because there are ways to become Medicaid eligible, and that process, that type of Medicaid, will pay for the majority of your care. You have anything to add?
There, basically, that's trying to get the Medicaid to help pay for the care. So somebody else has a question on here. Can you talk about what's the difference between guardianship, conservatorship, and trustee? At this time, we are elder care coordinators. I am not an attorney, and those three things are set up by an attorney. So Laura, what's your opinion that maybe they should talk to the attorneys?
Yeah, I think they should contact. I'm familiar with guardianship, but I'm not really familiar with any of the other topics there. And I helped my parents with my uncle in a guardianship situation because he was being taken advantage of. I do know that guardianship is very time consuming, a lot of stress involved, a lot of legal and accounting and financial stuff involved. So the only thing that I really have to say about that is if you can get your power of attorneys and those kind of documents in place before and avoid a guardianship, that's my input. But yeah, contacting an elder law attorney to ask about those other topics would be my recommendation.
And Laura, that's a good topic. We might turn it into the attorneys and have them topic for a webinar, right?
Right. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. See if I got any more questions. She wanted to know, do we help file the Medicaid? This person wants to know, do you help file the Medicaid application?
We contract with somebody who files a Medicaid application if you're looking at going into a skilled nursing facility. So yes, we help file the Medicaid application in that manner. as far as Medicaid waiver, the application itself is done through Elder Options. And we will assist and kind of walk through that process with you if you are one of our life care planning clients that our elder care coordinator services are included in. So we would help with that process, but we don't have pretty much we're not as, I would say, in control of that application process that way. They kind of look at the families as the person who owns that process, but we're definitely there helping you fill out the forms and kind of letting you know what's coming, what to expect. So if there's needs to be an appeal filed, we can help with the appeal process. So it depends on which type of Medicaid, how it's handled.
See if there's any more questions. Okay. How do you deal with a parent who refuses to give up driving?
There, well, I've actually been through this recently with both of my parents. Both times the physician was the person to deliver the bad news. The physician can fill out a form with the Department of Motor Vehicles that suggests that they pull the license. There is a there's a not orthopedic, an occupational therapy program here at UF called Smart Driver. And they put the patient through a lot of simulation type instances where they assess their skills, the reaction time, their distraction, all kinds of things they look at, and they can make a recommendation to the physician to not drive any longer, because most parents don't want to lose that independence. My dad, on the other hand, thought it would be great if he had a chauffeur, but most of the people I have talked to, they do not want to give up driving. And I think because you decline so slowly, you don't notice that your ability to drive changes. And it's not necessarily that you can't drive a car. You can probably drive just fine. I think you lose the ability to be a defensive driver and to protect yourself from others that aren't driving properly. So I recommend going through the physician to answer the question.
And as a guardian, I had an elderly woman, and she drove. And one day I get a call that she was admitted to the hospital because she hit a deer and flipped her little car. So we went to, I ended up having to tell her, you can't drive anymore. And it was really bad, but I did get her and a person to drive her. But that was in a different situation than with a parent. Both of my parents gave up driving, so they realized it was too much, it was too confusing on the roads. Any more questions? Those are some good questions. No more questions. So as I said in the beginning, this webinar is going to be sent to you, to all participants and all registrants. If you have any ideas when it comes, you can send me an email. I'll put my email in here, and you can ask, maybe give us some ideas of what you'd like to hear from the elder care coordinators. So I'll put that in the chat box if anybody's interested. And you can just say, hey, what do I want to hear from I want to hear about this. Oh, here's somebody else. I put that in there. Oh, there's Uber. Mary said Uber is a great option for somebody who refuses to give up driving, to set them up with. Okay. Okay, I'm gonna get into chat. Let me get myself into chat real quick. There we go. You have anything else, Laura?
I guess the driving, what do you do? It depends on where your parent is at their ability to problem solve or troubleshoot. I worked with a lady in the past who her battery went dead, but she couldn't figure out how to get a new battery. So she just didn't drive anymore because she couldn't figure out how to call AAA, or she couldn't troubleshoot anymore to resolve that. So sometimes just the natural process of not driving, that works too.
Well, we thank you for coming and joining
All right.
our webinar. And as I put my email address in the chat, if anybody wants to take it, it's jolisab@millerelderlawfirm.com. Give me some ideas of what you want to hear from us. Thank you.